The Possessed of Illfurtth, 150 years ago. A case of possession is proven when an evil entity decides to appropriate a person's body, voluntarily or not. 150 years ago, the case of the Possessed of Illfurtth broke out, and the story of the two children possessed by demons made headlines. We are in the second half of the 19th century, in Illfurth, a village located in the Sundgau, the southernmost part of Alsace. This is where the modest yet hardworking Berner family lives. The father is a street vendor and the mother takes care of her 3 or 5 young children. Nothing predestined this family to live the terrible events that we tell you below. How would we analyze such facts if they occurred in our time? The village of Illfurth will remain linked, forever, to the last case of demonic possession known in Alsace and recognized as such by the Church. The Possessed of Illfurtth. Among the Berners in Illfurth, the eldest son, Theobald Thibaudin Sundgauvian, was born on August 21, 1855, the second, Joseph, on April 29, 1857. In the autumn of 1864, the two children, aged 9 and 7 respectively, were afflicted with a mysterious ailment. Dr. Levy, a cantonal doctor from Altkirch, as well as several other Mulhausen colleagues, Drs. Kraft, Weyer and Sertecki, called up for consultations, declared themselves unable to make a diagnosis of their symptoms. The remedies attempted remain without effect. Thibaut, in particular, becomes skeletal thin. Curious illness. On September 25, 1865, the two boys showed frankly abnormal symptoms. Lying on their backs, they begin to turn on themselves, like real spinning tops, with frightening speed. Then they violently attack the beds and furniture of the house, before experiencing contortions of the lower limbs, convulsions, and violent attacks of nerves, then fall, for several hours, into such a comatose state that they are believed dead. Often, after these seizures, the two sick young people had a wolf's hunger that nothing could appease. Other times, their bellies would swell. They felt running in their stomachs like a swarming animal. Thibaut says that he feels chased by a horrible monster, with a duck's beak, clawed hands, filthy plumage. Seeing the specter hovering over his bed and pretending to strangle him, the child screams terribly, rushes at the monster and tears off feathers, 20 or 30 times, in broad daylight and in the presence of many witnesses. Burned, these feathers with a fetid smell left no ashes. Ghosts, which they were the only ones to see this time, filled them with a horrible fright. Sometimes the children were sitting on a chair, which was suddenly lifted by an invisible hand and thrown into one corner, while its occupant was sent to fly into another. So many tribulations end up nailing poor children to bed with painfully itchy bodies by appalling tingling. For hours, the children are calm and apathetic. And all of a sudden, they get angry, stiffen, gesticulating like madmen, screaming and screaming. Their voice, however, was not that of a child, but a powerful voice of a horseman. As the children kept their mouths shut, it was obvious that these words were the fact of invisible beings established within them. From there to think of Satan. Insensitive to religious invocations. We try to approach them a blessed object, small cross, rosary, medal, but then they enter into a violent fury. In addition, they stopped praying. The names of Jesus, of Mary, of the Holy Spirit, make them tremble and cry out. The first magistrate of the place, Mr. Tresh, once obtains silence by shouting to the little ones, "In the name of the Most Holy Trinity, shout louder." Fear also gripped the parents, Joseph Berner and Marianne Falzer, who watched helplessly as these sad shows unfolded. Fear also spreads to neighbors and visitors or curious, every day more numerous, some of whom come from afar. The strange rumor had indeed spread very quickly in the Sundgau, and everyone wanted to go see these little ones and realize this curious case, although the newspapers minimized or even ridiculed the case. Nothing helped. What is the origin of evil? There was indeed in Illfurth an old woman of bad repute, driven from her native country for her depraved morals. Hadn't the children accepted a few fatal apples from his hand? We find the witch, an old woman of bad repute, and, in addition, apples, link with Eve and the serpent Satan? Editor's note. This was what had been whispered, it was whispered, repeatedly told the spirits that haunted the two children. Moreover, strangely bizarre was the anguish of the little ones in the presence of holy things, their violent repugnance towards the church, prayer, divine service, as well as the execrable swear words and filthy words they uttered incessantly. With this, they spoke, answered, in various languages, French, Latin, English and Spanish, they who spoke before their evil only the Alsatian dialect. The authorities intervene. What is surprising, therefore, that everyone wants to see the poor little ones, and above all, that the civil and religious authorities are concerned about their fate, ordering a thorough investigation into the case. At the forefront of those interested is Illfurth's soul-laden Charles Bray, the great devotee of the Virgin. Also, the eminent and pious parish priest has a particular interest in the Burner family. He quickly understood that the phenomena were of diabolical origin and that this is a case of possession. In his correspondence of February 8, 1868, he informed the bishop and made a brief statement. He writes, among other things, that the cord of Saint Joseph strongly linked, whether to the body or the arm, would be violently torn from them by an occult power and thrown into a corner of the house. The scapular would fly by the chamber. The eldest would have predicted the death of two people he did not know were sick, a death that has indeed occurred since. This is what they say. As for me, I have not yet seen anything, except a few bouts of contortions. Departmental Archives, 4M54. After a first exorcism attempted by the Benedictines in Einsiedeln in May 1868 and well assisted by Mayor Tresch and other faithful, the parish priest Bray sent a second report on the case to the ecclesiastical authority, which did not send until the spring of 1869 to Illfurth a commission of 3 theologians, Ignace Spies, Mayor of Celestat, M. Martinot, Director of the Regie in Celestat, and M. Lackerman, of the Congregation of the Brothers of Mary and Professor at St. Hippolyte, to conduct an official investigation and, if necessary, to proceed with the exorcism. Demons have names. 2 infernal spirits, at least, dwelt in each of the children. They keep their names silent for as long as they could. Questioned by Father Sukwat in the name of Jesus, these evil spirits evaded the interview. The eldest of the little ones, is Thibot, was inhabited by the demons Oriba and Ipes. The latter was called Count of Hell, attendant to 71 legions. Ipes was deaf, and as long as he dominated the child, he was completely deprived of hearing, to the point of not reacting in any way to a pistol shot near his ear. It was only at the moment of his deliverance that Thibot heard again. One of the demons that haunted the youngest, Joseph, was called Salalathiel, and was cruel and cunning. From the other demon, we had not managed to know the name. He answered theologians' questions in different languages, especially English and French. Later, Thibot could speak in impeccable French, as well as Joseph, who could hardly yet read. Once they were alone, under the gaze of a neighbor who discreetly watched them, they talked for a whole day in French. In February 1868, the Bishop of Strasbourg invited the prefect of Haute-Rhin to have these children monitored, in order to discover if their condition has anything founded or if it would be the effect of a deception, as I believe. Departmental Archives, 4M54. In addition, the episcopal authority entrusted 2 sisters of Niederbronn, stationed in Mulhouse, Savara and Methula, with the task of supervising the poor children. When they arrive in Illfurth, they are taken to the little ones, transferred and separated from each other at the old school, on the intervention of the skeptical sub-prefect of Altkirch, convinced that the paternal milieu sought to take advantage of this case. Departmental Archives, 4M54. The latter, without ever having seen or known the sisters, immediately called them by their religious name and tutored them. To Sister Severa, a Bavarian, they specify the number of her siblings, the kind of their occupations, and reveal to her several family secrets. Suddenly, Joseph said to one, "You would be nice to give me the little blue bottle you have in your trunk." It was still at the station and contained a blue bottle of ether that he had searched for. A few days later, 2 other sisters from Niederbronn, stationed in Altkirch, came to visit their sisters. They talked to the possessed in a low voice. Lying on the bed, Thibot, although deaf, was able to return the sister's words to the priest Bray. The Episcopal exorcist in action at the beginning of September 1869, the eldest of the possessed, Thibot, accompanied by his mother, was transferred to observation for 5 weeks at the orphanage of St. Charles, Indiana Schiltigheim, directed by the Sisters of Charity, a transfer decided by the ecclesiastical authority. His behavior is once again closely observed: pallor and thinness of a child who had grown up too fast, eyes that betray instability and worry, and moreover deaf. Calm and expressive, he often walks around the courtyard but still refuses to enter the chapel, even blindfolded. If he was forcibly taken there, he barked like a dog. Once again, a case of possession was concluded and the bishop ordered the exorcism. On Sunday, September 3rd, Father Sukwat undertook the exorcism in the presence of 5 clergymen. The child is forcibly taken to the chapel. There, from his lips, the foam trickles down to the ground. We begin with litanies interrupted by a terrible cry. The possessed young begins to tremble with all his limbs, and it is very difficult to maintain him. The next day, the litanies and other liturgical prayers are completed. A violent dialogue begins again between the trembling and sweaty father and Thibot, caught in a fit of fury. Without stopping, however, the clergyman resumed the offensive against Satan by presenting him with a crucifix, then a statue of the Virgin. And there, once again, the little one squirms like a worm. But this time, we hear in the body a dull crunch. The child relaxes, leans over and falls inanimate. The devil has left him. We carry him to his room, and when he wakes up, he doesn't remember anything, and hears again. Mother and child return to Illfurth, hoping to see Joseph also soon delivered. Joseph's deliverance back in Illfurth, the mother must admit the sad reality: Joseph is more possessed than ever, and moreover, his condition is worsening day by day, while Thibot has regained his habits and abilities of yesteryear. This is why, without further delay, Father Bray asks the bishopric for permission to exorcise little Joseph as well. Once authorized, the exorcism ceremony is set for October 27th, at the former church of the Burnkirch in Illfurth. The operation was kept secret in order to avoid a crowd, and only a privileged few are invited. We begin with the Holy Mass, where the possessed begins to constantly tap his foot, to shout, to bark and to twist in all directions, and it is necessary to bind his arms and legs. At the service, the priest kneels at the foot of the altar and recites the prayers of exorcism, the litanies of the saints, while Joseph begins to overwhelm him with insults. And for 3 hours, the valiant exorcist tires around the child, applying relics to his head, sprinkling him with holy water. It is then that, repeatedly invoking the name of the Immaculate Virgin Mary, as for Thibot, we understand that the hour of deliverance is near. After a violent dialogue, the child relaxes, becomes silent and motionless. After a moment, he stretches like someone who wakes up, opens his eyes and seems very surprised to be in the Burnkirch in such company. It goes without saying that the return to the paternal home will give rise to great rejoicing. The following Sunday, October 31st, Thanksgiving was celebrated in the church with Te Deum and bell ringing at every turn. A monument to the Virgin. It was decided that the victory against Satan was certainly to the credit of the Virgin, both in Schiltigheim for Thibot and in Illfurth for Joseph. With the money collected from the sale of a small pamphlet written by the priest Bray, in 1872, the famous statue of the Immaculate Virgin Mary, in gilded cast iron, was erected in front of the old farm of the Berner family, on an imposing stone base, all more than 2 meters, a memorial sculpted by Victor Muller de Danemary. On the base, one can read this sentence: In memoriam perpetuum liberationis Eurum possessorum Theobaldi et Josephi Berner, obtenti per intercessionem Vitae Mariae Immaculati. Anno Domini Michaelix, in perpetual memory of the deliverance of the 2 possessed Theobald and Joseph Berner, obtained through the intercession of Mary, the Immaculate Virgin in her conception. L'an du Seigneur 1869. The 2 little ex-possessed died still young. Thibot died some 2 years after his deliverance, on April 3, 1871, at the age of only 16. His brother Joseph found work, married, and settled in Zillesheim. He died there on January 13, 1884, at the age of 27, the last sacraments being brought to him by the priest Bray. Father Bray, meanwhile, died in the smell of holiness in 1895 at the age of 68. Illfurth therefore remains linked to the last case of demonic possession known in Alsace and recognized as such by the Church.